We continue this one on Femicide, March Against Femicide, that happened on Saturday. Thousands of people turned up, and it was organized by, among others, Editor Ochieng, who is a feminist activist, a member of Africans Rising. We also have in the studio Ruth Ambogo, lawyer, governance and policy expert. There's a question that I asked you, Ruth.
Yes.
And I asked you, is this a man versus woman? In fact, I asked both of you. And I keep asking this because every time, even in your WhatsApp group, the way you said, it appears to create a sort of a divide.
Mm-hmm.
So women are saying, you men, stop killing us. And then men are saying, okay, so why are we killing you? Why are you being immoral? Why is this conversation coming down to it's a men versus women conversation? It creates this narrative, sort of like men hate women. And it continues. If you look at the comments that we're seeing on social media, it's the same. It's a kind of pushback. It's a pushback. Oh, men, you women, you men, stop killing us. Why are we getting there? What exactly are we dealing with? And I want to ask that question again directly to all of you, your opinion of it. Is this a men hating women, killing women?
Personally, I think the conversation is beyond men versus women. And why I say so is because I have personal examples of violence against women that did not necessarily involve a man in the act, that at some point actually involved women mitigating violence against fellow women. In our off-air conversations, I mentioned that in 2022 I attempted to vie. And why this is relevant is because you will see cases of women mitigating the very same violence that if men mitigate against women, we would call it hatred for women. But now the context is different. It is a woman mitigating violence against a fellow woman. I joined the race at a very young age. And when I came on board, I think there was a lot of conversation around the fact that, I couldn't make it and I was too young and inexperienced and a slay queen and all those derogatory terms that people throw at young women who seem to have it all together physically and, or well put together. So you are a slay queen, you will not make it in this political arena. But unlike what they expected, contrary to their beliefs, I actually ended up coming up with a very strong strategy that got me very popular in a very short period of time. Popular not just with the young people, but with the elderly and, the church community and all those stratospheres of the people in the society, how you divide the society into categories. With the older men, I was popular with my different strategy with them. With the younger ones, different groups of people. So as I continued building up my political career back in 2021, I remember there was a by-election that was taking place at Matungu. And one of my biggest opponents, whose names I will not mention, they ended up clinching the seat. You can find out for yourself, Vihiga County, current woman representative, seemed to be one of the people who are very uncomfortable with how far I had gone with my popularity. So I attended the Matungu by-elections to support the party that I was in at the time. And I remember when I was trying to climb the podium at one of the big rallies, the final rallies, she sent somebody to try and, first of all, the first thing they did is they sent somebody to try and, remove my clothes, uncover my clothes and have me exposed naked out there, which is a form of violence during campaigns.
It is violence.
And it was actually not a man who was sent, but a woman in her team. And she herself was trying to pull me down from the caravan as I was climbing so that I could fall down. And if you fall down from a caravan that is so high, there is no predicting what will happen to you. There were instances where I would be invited to political meetings and she would send goons, male goons, who would come. I remember one time I went to a political meeting where a chief was retiring and being promoted to a different station, a county commissioner. And I was told, you come, get to know these police officers. They will be useful to you during your campaigns. So she was not invited. And word reached out to her that Ruth has arrived at that meeting and you are not there. Send somebody to deal with her. In a matter of 10 minutes, a young man came on a boda. Next thing I know, bottles are flying, soda bottles are flying all over. I'm almost being hit with these bottles. Had I not had a team that was very quite responsive to this environment, we would be talking about a different story. This is violence, political violence, being meted upon a woman by a fellow woman. Now, the most disturbing incident that happened in my campaign, which was totally intended to destabilize me, and it did, it actually got me out of the campaigns, was when a daughter to my PA in my campaigns was mercilessly raped by somebody who was also in my campaign, but was a mole of my opponent. So you send an opponent into my campaign team, a male opponent. I mean, you send a male person into my campaign team. You give them instructions that get so close to her to an extent where she trusts you so much and she will listen to you. And when the opportunity strikes, do the most that you can do to get her out of this campaign. And so it ended up being such a crazy incident of a young girl being raped. And the girl who was raped was actually a lady who had some brain development issues, so she couldn't understand what was going on. She was actually lured to her rape. And for me, why I'm bringing up this conversation is because when this happened, and I liked the question that you asked about the example you gave of South Africa, where people spoke publicly about rape and it sort of reduced the incidences. So here we have a woman propagating all these things against a fellow woman. Things that if a man does would be considered as femicide. And this conversation again extends to the fact that, and for me, sometimes I get very uncomfortable with some of these terminologies. And that is why you will never find me saying, sorry to say, my sister, you will never find me publicly saying, I am a feminist. Because there are times when I have held views that feminists would totally disagree with and have fought me viciously on social media platforms. And I find that some of these feministic views are views that are borrowed from Western conversations and Western terminologies that, if brought back to our African context, would make it very difficult to resolve an issue that we are dealing with. For instance, when you say femicide is the killing of women because women are hated, and when you concentrate on the killing, you forget the process that leads up to the killing. I was on our way here, I was engaging my uncle because we were driving with my uncle back to Nairobi. And he brought up a case of a woman who they met at a certain joint. I think he's a mutual friend of theirs. And this lady, he was talking about how this lady would come to the joints, wherever they meet up and hang out. And she says, Ata leo nimepigwa. Leo nimepigwa. In fact, I know when I leave this meeting, when I get back home, I know I will be slapped because if I get late by like 10 minutes, nitapigwa. And my uncle was saying, she couldn't understand how this woman talks about this beating like it is such a normal thing. It's such a normal thing, you know? She talks about how her husband, when she goes to the local shop, the husband sometimes follows her just to monitor who this woman is talking to. You see, in that case, and most of the times, such cases, I usually say that by the time an intimate partner is killing you, they have slapped you 1 or 2 times. And what will lead to your death sometimes will not even be that this intimate partner was saying, today I'm going to kill you. It would be that he was just saying, today I want to slap you. I'm so angry, let me slap you. Yeah. But in the process of slapping you, they sort of push you to the wall. They come with too much force that is not normal. The normal slaps, They push you to the wall, you hit your head, internal bleeding, you're dead. Another instance would be that according to them, that the instance at which you died, they didn't come intending that they're going to kill you. So they've slapped you, you are at the top of the stairs.
It's a build-up of something.
Exactly, you're at the top of the stairs. Next thing they know, they probably did not see the stairs. They push you, you fall, and you die. And I'm not excusing that. I'm not saying that now we are justifying this man killing you. But what we are trying to say is there is a process.
So what is it? And that's why I asked the question.
Yes.
What is it that we are dealing with in society? Editor, you deal with these issues at community level on a daily basis. What are we dealing with? Are we dealing with hate? Are we dealing with impunity? Are we dealing with attitude problem? What is it?
For me, I would say we are dealing with systematic issues that we borrowed from colonial period. And looking at that, how Kenya has been working every single day, even at judiciary level, the lawyers, the system that they've used, that is against the black person. I'll just, in the context of Kenya. And we borrowed so much from them. How we speak, how we go to school, and we left our traditional way that were progressive to live. Yes, we had retrogressive cultures, but at the same time, we had very progressive way to live right now. And in this context, every Kenyan is really confused. When we speak about femicide, and for me, I want to speak about femicide, yes, there is so much issues that is going. Personally, I'm a survivor of sexual violence so many times, but most of the time, I talk about 2 of them. 6 years, defiled, 16 years, I was brutally gang raped. I didn't die, I'm here today. But it tells you how community is, whereby patriarchy would love to shatter the dreams of women. They take away our power in a very different way. And every woman, I love this conversation, and this conversation also, people who are listening, remember that we have our own individual stories as women. It is not collective. What happened to me, it might be a similar experience, but it is not exact thing that happened to another woman. We need to be careful with that. And on femicide right now, personally, as editor, if you ask me, I'll speak directly to the men, patriarchy, on their faces, and I will tell them, patriarchy.
What is this patriarchy?
Killing men. It's a community that is men-dominated. If our president today was a woman, it could be maybe something different. However much maybe we could.
So what does the male domination then do? I mean, how does patriarchy lead up to violence?
They don't care about women because they think about a woman is a woman. They subject women all the time. And they think about that women are lesser being.
Who?
Patriarchy. Remember, long time ago.
Who are you saying? Are you saying men don't care about women?
Patriarchy. I'm speaking about where a community is well men-dominated. Whereby,
and you've said Kenya is a patriarchy.
Kenya is.
So are you saying that the men in Kenya don't care about women?
Yes, most of men in Kenya don't care about women. Most of the men in Kenya don't care about the well-being of women. I didn't say all men in Kenya.
Can I ask a question? If we take this thing, I'm going to keep going back to the origins of this thing. How do we bring up our men, our young boys and girls? And in an African society, who brings them up?
Women, mothers.
Who instills the idea in these young men that they are different and that they are better and that there are things they cannot do because it's only women who do those things? Where do these ideas come from?
Men.
Who instills it? There's the male. Who instills it?
Like, for example, I was raised up in a patriarchal home.
Yes.
Whereby, yes, my mother was there. She gave birth.
Yes.
And my mother took care of us.
Yes.
But at certain point, my father could utter some words to affirm my brother. You get?
Yes.
And my brother used to be so violent because of those utterances when we were young, when we were children.
Yes.
So when we grew up, when I started saying no, it was a problem, and it really brought a lot of issues between my father and my mother. And my father was saying, my mother didn't raise us well. So as much as women are taking care of the families, and
there's a male influence.
Yes, there is a male influence.
There's a male influence that you can't ignore, and the male influence comes in where?
Allow me just to cut you in.
Yes.
We are taking this conversation to exactly where it's at, where we are saying it is so and so, it is so and so. And I'm asking this question so that you look at this thing dispassionately and ask yourself the simple question. What is it that we do with the bringing up of our children? Because these things begin there.
Yes,
I agree.
How do you have a wholesale generation and individuals who think that they are entitled? How? That doing what we say is retrogressive and negative. It must emanate from somewhere. When someone is entitled, they feel they are within their rights to slap you around.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is
even in public. Why? What? It doesn't begin with them slapping you around. It begins with a sense of entitlement.
Yes.
Now I am saying this. If we look at this this concept of how we bring children up, take it back to even your fathers, take it back to their fathers. You just keep taking it. The reason why traditional African society, you had these matters were lessened is because all these people lived in one compound. Okay? So the check and balance was right there.
Your neighbor could, if your mother is not around,
it didn't matter. You are the son, the people you're related to were just around you.
Yes.
They were not going to allow you to misbehave. So you knew the check and balance was there. Now, you remove that check and balance and you bring it into this. By the way, it's not unique to us. Huh? Communities around the world, do you know the efforts that many communities have gone through to remove this patriarchal leaning? All these societies in the West, when they hear feminism, why do you think it came up? They were facing problems very similar to ours.
Yes.
And they decided, no, enough is enough. Some women got liberated because of those so-called world wars where men had gone to fight.
And women were left alone.
Yes, so somebody had to do those things. So that's how they took it up. Now, an honest conversation about this. It's very difficult to divorce femicide from emotions, but we must try. Because if we do not look at how these things develop and how they grow, and how you have this cast in concrete ideas that people walk around with and live by, we can talk until we are blue in the
sun.
Well, blue is a bit difficult since it's already dark. But until we are purple in the face.
Yes.
But we won't change anything. So let me ask you the question. When you look at the norms that bring about, because it's something that people learn, how do you ensure that you curtail it at the very point where it originates?
I think, first of all, there needs to be a re-upbringing of the older men and women in the society in general. There needs to be a re-education of what parenting should look like. Our education systems probably need to go back to what they were before modernization came about. When we were in school, I'm not suggesting that I am very old, but when we were my days in school, we used to be beaten up for the mistakes that we would make, small mistakes that we would make, which sort of brought us up in a way where we lived in a society that had consequences for our actions. But remember now, education system has evolved, where you are being told that there shouldn't be punishment by the rod, by the cane, for students who, errant young boys and girls. So they grow up in a society where, and it's not just the education system, it is also the family setup, where a parent comes and says, mtoto ni wangu. I'm the one who knows how I'm raising my kid. So if a child in the playground of an estate beats up another kid, you as a parent whose kid has been beaten up have no say or no right as to what that other child should suffer in terms of consequences. And when the other child goes back to their house, the mother probably even encourages them, saying, "Huyo mwingine ndiye alikuwa bully." There is no system of punishment for bringing up kids today. There is no system of actions and consequences. And then second, as I said, as the first point, I need to elaborate on the first point, which was retraining the older society, older generation. There is a manner in which there are issues that people go through and face. And by the older generation, I don't even mean 50s, 40s. I mean even as young as 25s, 30s, there are issues that we deal with the moment you get into your adulthood as a young man or a young woman. Some of them psychological issues. How do we re-educate the society, first of all, to look at psychological issues that men and women face as normal issues that can be resolved? How do we get to a point where, as a society, because some of these deaths, let's be very honest, as we said, are not out of a man hating a woman. They're out of a man being very frustrated, getting to a point where psychologically they have issues they're dealing with, and they have no avenue to ventilate, and therefore their only quickest avenue to ventilate is beating you up, which eventually leads to your death. So how do we come up with societal structures that make sure that anybody who has psychological issues that might push them to a point of beating up another person, psychological issues that might lead them to killing people, are actually addressed? Can we get to a point where we destigmatize mental health issues? And by mental health issues, I don't mean being so extreme as to a point where we are mentioning the different types of mental health issues. I'm not talking about bipolar. I'm not talking about schizophrenia. I'm talking about where, as a man or a woman, you're facing emotional turmoil. You have pressure from family, you have pressure from your workplace, you have expectations that you need to have met, and therefore when you get into a relationship setup, you're throwing all this pressure at your partner.
Yeah.
Can there be a destigmatization of platforms such as Madare Mental Hospital, which actually offer counseling services, where you walk in, you pay 500 shillings, you sit with a counselor. You are not necessarily suffering from schizophrenia. You are just having a cocktail of issues that could push you to an extent where you will beat up somebody and end up killing them? Can we destigmatize mental health issues?
You give us the example of Johannesburg, this kind of protest. India, similar thing was happening. Just rape, and the people came out and said, no, this has got to end. And when they were looking back, they asked themselves, so what is it? How can our young men just suddenly be so callous
yes,
in how they treat
and insensitive
their sisters and cousins and relatives? I mean, what is it? And they had to go back into there's something that is broken in the societal fabric. Are we saying the same kind of thing? Are we witnessing that in our society? And what is it?
Well, look, there is something broken, and that's for sure. I don't think we can run away from it. And I think that in order to deal with it, we have to pull everything apart. Just look at a court of law, what happens? There's evidence that's gathered when a case has been brought before a judge or a magistrate. And then what happens to the two? The evidence is brought before court, all the individuals come out and they share what it is that they know or do not know. It is then pulled apart and it's pieced together to form a case. Why do people kill in the first place? It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman. Why do people kill? What takes them to the point whereby ending life is better than staying with the option of interacting with this human being again? Why do people because it is not easy to take another life. I don't care whether you're under the influence of what. By the time you get to the point where life has been snuffed from another individual, you have to have gone really, really far in terms of your own personal convictions or in your temporary insanity, whatever it must have been. And I think the only way that we're going to be able to look at this is, yes, we're going to have to look at it dispassionately, however difficult that must be, that we are going to have to be objective when it comes to dealing with this thing. Is it terrible? Oh my God, absolutely. Nobody should have to die for whatever reason, right? But in order to, because what we are saying is, Editar, we want to stop it. What we're saying, Ruth, is that we want to stop it. But in order to stop something, we have to figure out why it started, how it started, how it's carried on, right? At the point where life is being taken, that individual, this man who has killed this woman, at the point where life is being taken, are they thinking, I am taking this life because it is a woman and I hate her? It is an uncomfortable situation, but we're going to have to ask the question.
What do you think, Lou?
I don't think that can be given to every situation. I think that there are very few that can happen in that manner.
Yeah.
I think that if we were going to uncover the layers and ask the question truthfully, that very few would say, yes, I'm taking this life because she's a woman and all women damned to hell, let me kill them. I think that there are very many elements that lead towards that happening, and circumstance then is what has created this place where it happens to be a woman that is being killed by the man that is doing the killing. But because there are so many other constructs in society, it then becomes a little bit easier for us to call it a certain thing because it is a woman
to blanket
being
it.
killed. And truth be told, in order for us to solve this, we must, again, like the court of law, separate
emotions.
This. We have to. Otherwise, we will never solve it.
Yeah.
We will not get to the place whereby we can make it public and we put it into the public and make anybody, doesn't matter, man or woman, so uncomfortable with taking life that they stop it. And that's where we need to get. That somebody needs to get so uncomfortable with taking life as an option to solve an issue. That's where we need to get to solve the problem.
I think we're dealing with a deeper issue. It's unfortunate, it's wrong that it ends up with any form of violence, any form of death. Because most of the cases, and Editar, you have dealt with many of them, Ruth, you've also seen very many of them. We have had many conversations here. Most of the cases that will end up with a woman dead will happen in an intimate situation. This is somebody with whom they're involved. They're in a relationship, they're in a marriage, they're in something.
Yes.
Okay? and it'll end up there. What is it that will end up there? Why is it that we don't talk about somebody killing their co-worker because she's a woman?
Mm-hmm. No, we have also such cases. People have killed women. For example,
we have many. I hear you. We have many. The greater percentage is not that.
Yeah.
The greater percentage is not where a woman was walking and then she met with a stranger and the stranger killed her. The greater percentage is not where a woman. It has to be. It is a greater percentage is this one where you know one another.
80%.
You are in a relationship with one another. What is it that would start a relationship? Is a relationship starting on a point of hate, of conflict? It's not. So why is it that this conflict is leading to violence, is leading to death? And I think it shows us something that's happening in relationships. Either the structure of our relationships or the structure, like you said, of our mental state before, into, during, after relationships. That this entire power structure that ends up playing in favor, quote unquote, of the male person and against, quote unquote, the female person. And the female person here is physically not as strong as the male person. So the male person uses the physical power to empower, to overpower the person, and the other person becomes a victim. So what is this that's happening in these relationships? Are we dealing with things that are happening in a relationship where now the whole battle becomes a power battle and a power struggle in a relationship, and this power struggle can only end up in a physical contest, and the physical contest will end up one way, and often it ends up one way. There are also very many cases where you see it ending up the other way.
I think it's a question of expectations. In every relationship setup, be it work, be it friendship, be it relationship, romantic relationship setups, and any other setup where two people are coming together to transact whatever sort of business, even business relationships, it's a question of expectations. It's a question of, I'm coming to this relationship. You know, when you get into a relationship, you don't get into a relationship with a person that you hate.
Nope.
Because if the question was hate, then we would say these are partners who got together with one having in mind the fact that they truly hate this person and they're coming with an agenda from the onset of the relationship to kill that woman. So it's a question of, I have seen this, let's say for example, I am a man, I've seen this lady, I like her, and I genuinely believe we can have something together, be it that leads to marriage, or be it a relationship where we are trying to figure things out, or any other form of relationship that we are having. So when we get into this relationship, there are expectations that naturally rise from the fact that we have decided to engage together.
Yeah.
Some of the natural expectations from the African context are, I'm expecting that as a man, you will provide. And the man is expecting that as a woman, you will probably take care of me, especially if it's a marriage setup. You'll take care of me, you'll take care of the family, you will make sure everything is running okay. So in the upset of those expectations, conflict begins.
Conflict rises.
Where if, as a woman, I expected you to provide financially, and you stop providing, I begin complaining. And as a man, because you're complaining, I react. So sometimes even these murder cases that where women end up being killed, normally begin with the woman's expectations have not been met, so the woman begins by complaining first. And I'm not saying that the woman deserves to die, but I'm just now leading you up to the death process where the woman ends up dying. So the man begins to react to that complaint of, you are not providing as I expect you would. Now, if proper communication comes in where the expectations are not met, when expectations are not met, then I doubt we would have people dying in relationships. Because what would happen is, if I realize that you are not providing as I expected you to provide, we would end up having a conversation about, why are you not providing as we thought you'd provide?
Yeah.
Is it a question of the economic times have become difficult? And what can we do about it? Can I also chip in in the meantime, as we stabilize?
Are young people brought up to understand that when you have these difficulties, you have a conversation about it?
And that is it. And that's why I brought up the fact that if proper communication would reign in these conversations, in these conflict situations, we would never find ourselves getting to a point where there is death and the people are dying, people are being dismembered. It would
Oh,
be
there's
a
even a slap.
question of even a slap. It would be a
Forget
it would
slap,
not
even pushing.
even
my head.
Even forget about pushing, even insults.
Even insults.
If we were to be trained from a young age how to communicate when there are issues, we would never get there. For instance, I'd tell you, I am not trying to promote myself in terms of my relationship prowess, but I rarely find myself in confrontations when I'm in relationships. Why? Because at my high school level, we used to be taught critical thinking and we were taught conflict resolution. At my university level, Strathmore University, some of the foundational courses you are taught are communication skills, critical thinking, conflict resolution. As a lawyer, one of the core courses I have to take before I'm a graduate of a university of law school, a law school university, is a course on conflict resolution. To even further myself as an advocate, I would have to take a course on mediation
and
you know.
arbitration.
So it would be very difficult to find somebody like me in a confrontation because there has been a foundation where I have been taught proper communication skills and things like that. And I'm not even accrediting it to education so that we say that there are certain people who would be underprivileged and therefore it justifies their nini.
We have people who've studied what you've studied.
Exactly, and they still
actually wonder whether they actually went to the same school. as
exactly.
you.
So I think also it is also over and above communication, yeah? Because I would say education institution has helped me to be the kind of person that I am in relationships today.
Yeah.
But there are mentorship platforms that have been set up out there where young men and women haven't taken advantage of the same mentorship platforms. You find that, and it's also a question of how society is structured. We've gotten to a point where we don't do community activities that would bring us together as they would in the past. Like for instance, I'm not saying that everybody should be religious, but church used to be one of those platforms where if you are in a relationship setup and things are not working according to the way they should, you meet a pastor or you meet your religious leader and you tell them, Pastor, we are having problems. Could you please help us navigate these problems?
Yeah.
So you find yourselves resolving your problems in that community setup. So we don't have community. We are as
There are
as
many things
we
that are lacking in the community.
individualistic.
Let's bring in the elder,
Yes.
who is also a behavioral scientist.
Okay.
Before the elder, I have
Yes.
something to say.
Please.
When we were speaking, I was just thinking about intergenerational conversation that are really authentic because we are different generations. But most of the time, you will find on intergenerational conversation also, there is the same blame game. You young people, you are lazy, you are not doing ABCD. And I just want to remind us, personally, I didn't go to Strathmore, but
Yes.
I'm from Kibra University, whereby we are not taught all these skills.
Yes.
But I've never killed any human being.
Yes.
Like it is difficult for me again to be like a problematic person confronting people. Apart from when I'm on my activism, I'm defending human rights. But one-on-one, when I'm in relationship also, it doesn't happen. So another thing I'm looking at, yes, all the time we want to paint Christianity as one of the ways, or religion as one of the ways that has worked for African. That is where we messed up, because Christianity, religion, on a religious perspective, looking at Islamic religion and Christianity, there is a place that says if anyone is not of that religion, they are supposed to be killed. One of the people who are vulnerable to be killed is a woman. What Mackenzie did, he killed most of the women. We are still talking about 546 women. And I was telling my colleagues, we have data at Mackenzie, and the government has not provided the exact data. How many women were killed on that? Every day we are losing women in churches. Every day we are losing women in mosque. But religious leaders, when they come, they will cover that. And because we are brainwashed that this is the way, Jesus is the way, in quotes, Muhammad is the way, that is what we follow. But there is limitations to all these. I was taking my daughter to school last week, and when we reached in that school, we didn't have a choice, because I was telling the person in charge that we are not religious. And for her, she thought something else. And this is also problematic because people like us are not allowed to live in the community. And I tell people, if anyone wants to kill anyone that is not religious, if there was a man and there is a woman, they will kill me first, because I'm kind of vulnerable. Again, another thing is about the entitlement attitude, whereby patriarchy has it. That is the reality. Patriarchy has it at the household level and even at the community level. A woman, for example, if I want to leave my relationship today, it will be okay for my partner to leave the relationship, but it is not okay for me to move on.
Why?
The same entitlement. You get? Me, I'm different. If I want to leave my relationship, I know my partner is listening today. Ata hapa kwa nini, I will go. But women are not liberated like the same way that I am. Yes, I don't have those education, whatever, but in my social life, I know what I want, right? But most of the women don't know whether to stay or to go. Sometimes we tell women, this relationship is violent. You need to walk away.
Yeah.
And I look at people and say, sometimes walking away is more dangerous than staying. You walk away, he kills you. You stay, yes, he abuses you forever, but immediately when this woman is walking away, she's packed. Tomorrow she's dead. So there is things that we tell women, we advise women, and I just want to bring all these issue. All women have their individual stories. I live with women, I sit with different women, in fact.
What do you see? I mean, because you've dealt with them, and you're saying that many times you deal with women who are going through domestic violence, and you advise them, when it gets to this level, probably one of the options that you should consider is walking out of this relationship. Tell me the reasons that they tell you that they will not.
In my work, I've never...
You have mentioned that
I've
if
never
you step out,
advised
you'll be killed.
any woman to walk out of the relationship. But when I talk, we share our stories collectively.
It becomes an option.
Yes, optional. Because when you say maybe...
So why don't they walk out?
Mine, all women that I've spoken to who have experienced violence, they've walked away.
Okay.
Yeah. And walking away...
Have they been killed? Because you said... If one of the things that is, if you walk out of a relationship, you stand a higher chance of being killed. Where are you getting that from? Is it from what you've observed?
You know, when you work in the community, for example, in the community that I'm working in Kibera, men will say, they'll just amka asubuhi. Now, waseme kwa vichekesho, like, unajua kikosa hapa, Editar atakuarrest. The face that I have when I'm working in the community with women has given most of the women power to rise. So when they're walking away out of this toxic relationship, let me tell you, most of them don't live in that community. Because we've seen also men stalking on these women, beating them, in a public space. And everyone is silent because, like, uyu ni bibi na bwana. So when these women are walking away, also, out of their own choices, they don't live in that community. They go somewhere else. Or right now, for example, we work with Usikimye directly, and where they are located, if we need referral, we'll use Usikimye. And the best part is when these women are now, like, they are referred to Usikimye. They will also get mental services, they will get support, they will get financial support. So when they come back in the community, they come back in the community when they're so much empowered.
You know, it's very strange, yeah? We, having made the noise and having brought this awareness to the level now, it has to be discussed. It can't be ignored. This is where now you need to be specific. When you talk about femicide, it's deliberate killing of women. Deliberate. Someone has set out, that is what is in their mind. Now, there's some which are institutionalized. If you look at certain countries on this planet, let me pick on China. Children were killed because of a preference for boys.
Yes.
India, the same. Okay. Yet, when you look at the global picture and the numbers globally, we actually don't feature. Because 50% of all violence against women which end up in death is actually found in Latin America.
But Africa features as top, with 20,000 women dying every year.
Actually...
Then Latin America.
Actually, women dying, I'm talking about... that's why I'm categorizing
the femicide.
I'm categorizing it. I'm categorizing it specifically because if we want to ensure that it is understood, we have to be specific about what we're talking about. If you're talking about gender-based violence that ends up in women dying, it's not that these people hate women. It's what we've been talking about here. Okay? Now, as they say, numbers don't lie. But if you then read the literature on why this happens, and you read the literature based on this continent, unfortunately, most of the literature hasn't been written by Africans. So some of the things they point out, they say, polygamy, it is this, it is, and I'm reading, I'm saying, you don't really understand. You don't really understand this thing. But the point is this, when something reaches fever pitch like this one here, and it's actually a genuine problem, it's something you can't wish away.
No, it is.
Because young women are dying, people are dying, and the numbers are increasing. So you cannot look away. There has been a discussion that we've had in this studio for the longest time. We gave it a pause to focus on education. It was a mental health discussion. Because mental health, you don't have to be running around naked in the streets of Nairobi waving and talking to yourself. No. All you require is for something to be either too loose or a little too tight in your head. And it's unresolved.
Yes.
This issue of a woman leaving a man and then the man following to kill. I want to give this as an example. When a man is disempowered, a man, he feels himself that society, whatever it is, has disempowered him. That man in a relationship is dangerous. Because to recover his balance, he'll want to dominate this person.
Yes.
If that lady leaves, he's back to that position of disempowered, and even worse, he can't even live with a woman. Now, that person is going to have difficulties living with himself. Forget with other society. He's already looking at himself through the eyes of his peers and his society, and the position he started off with has now been worsened.
And he has failed.
And he has failed.
Failure.
Kabisa. That was a question of Bibi. Now, when it's put that way, now, such a person, can you see how this murderous thought can easily get into their minds?
Yeah.
Now, ask yourself the situation. People talk about South Africa as leading in these.
Yeah.
Look at how the African male was disempowered in South Africa during apartheid. Just look at it.
Their land was taken away from
those
them.
people. I mean, that amount of violence that you see, it has to come from somewhere. Someone must have harbored it, and now an opportunity arises, they can unleash it. People don't wake up in the morning and they are violent. No, it doesn't happen that way. Something must happen that plants that seed, and then it's nurtured and it grows. You talk of, say, communities where you call a demonstration, drop of a hat, they're demonstrating. It isn't genetic.
Yeah.
It is learned behavior.
Even the technique.
Learned behavior.
Missiles.
It is learned behavior. Where I can be in a suit and I'm carrying a briefcase and there's some stones in that briefcase.
Declaration.
You shock and say, hiya. This guy in the suit is throwing stones. Kwani.
Always ready.
No, yani, at the drop of a hat, you're willing to resist.
What leads to that? What's that learned behavior?
You see, the learned behavior is if it is instilled in your mind that you've been systematically marginalized, that you are considered after everybody else has been considered, then you figure, well, what do I actually have to lose? Let me give you an example. For the very longest time, when you had a riot or a demonstration, the two are almost synonymous. In a place like, say, Kisumu, you'd find a car being burnt, a tuk-tuk. You never heard of a motorbike being burnt or a bicycle being burnt. Why? People could identify with a bicycle or a motorbike. Tuk-tuk, not some. Car they couldn't identify with. So a loss of a car, how is that? How does that relate to them?
I don't know what it is. Never had it.
Yes. When people are empowered and people you know have those things, you can relate to those things.
Yeah.
And you can even understand the value. If they're absent, in all honesty, you couldn't care less if you entered the showroom and burnt all the cars. It doesn't register.
If anything, you who own the cars are the ones oppressing us.
Precisely. There's a violent streak that we see among border riders here.
Oh, yes.
And they're getting more and more extreme with time. It was, remember the Forest Road, the Wangaro Maathai Road, where they molested some young lady? Now they've gone to stoning cars. To the point where the car is completely... Now, what anger is this that these people have? I would have assumed if someone is hit by a car, You want to take them to hospital.
Yes.
That is not the case. You want to harm the person. That
yeah.
person doesn't know this person. They didn't leave their house with the intentions of hitting this person. It's clearly an accident. What is it? Now ask yourself, what is the narrative in their head? And what's the profile of a border rider? It's actually mixed. You can't tell whether they've gone to school, didn't go to school. You can't tell. But they seem to share this anger, which at the slightest provocation is unleashed. Why? Now, the mental health conversation has to come back.
And I think it has sufficiently taken center stage in this conversation.
Just pause for a second before I forget. So. I want to say one thing. Where the real mental health problem is in the leadership.
Yeah.
Because if you're living in a country and you're in the position of power to make decisions and you can see all this and you're doing nothing, there's something actually wrong with your head.
And also if the leadership itself displays some tendencies of mental health issues by how they behave, society follows suit. I mean, look at cases of our politicians cocking out guns and brandishing guns at the public.
Yeah.
So I think it's a conversation, as you have said, needs to take center stage, and it's a conversation that needs to go over and above people seeking mental health, people going in for counseling and extending to medication,
it's a much
extending to it's a deeper conversation.
Yes.
And as I was saying earlier, and Editor brought in the fact that education, that there are people who might not have been privileged not to attend the schools that some of us attended, and even gotten the platforms that some of us have gotten to refine our character and our image. But I would also want to say societal. I was bringing up the conversation about our societal interactions. Even in our day-to-day interactions, what kind of friends do we keep? And I mean, where I'm bringing up this conversation is, earlier off air, we were speaking about the entitlement that some men have to women when they send you money. The entitlement that I have sent you money, I expect you to do ABCD. The entitlement
every transaction is entitlement. But
yes.
If the transaction is, send me money so that I do this, then the person that you've sent money, come on, let's go on.
But the point I'm trying to put across is, even forget about money. The entitlement that men generally have to women, to an extent that leads them to killing women. For instance, in clubs where I've gone out, I'm sitting somewhere at a social joint. I'm sitting somewhere, a man decides, look good, let me buy you a drink.
Refuse the drink.
Fine, I will refuse the drink, but I'm trying to say, where does the expectation personally,
why are you refusing a drink?
Better that.
Fine.
That's the entitlement.
So you see, fine. The conversation I'm trying to bring across is, at what point do we get to where society finds it so comfortable to be in a social setting such as that? You see a nice young lady, you say, I think I like this woman. You decide that at the table they are sitting, kila mtu apewe moja moja. Then at the end of the night, you're expecting that because I did that, these women must eventually follow me and go with me wherever I am going. So how do we deconstruct that kind of entitlement, I think it boils down to our conversations, our friendships, because some of us, while we were growing up, we had some level of entitlement within us. But because of the friendships that we have, where people tell you, Ruth, to this extent, there's some level of pride in you. Cut on that. To this extent, you seem to be entitled. Cut on that. So our social interactions should be able to shape us and move us forward as a society.
Ruth, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And Editor as well, Asanteni Sana, for giving us these 2 hours to have this national conversation. This conversation must continue. Very many comments on social media. Let the conversation happen in all platforms. Editor Ochieng is a feminist activist, member of Africans Rising, and Ruth Ambogo is a lawyer, governance and policy expert, and aspiring political leader. Hi. Thank you for joining us in Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.